Okay, so it's safe to say that everybody in life has encountered some kind of argument where it could lead up into result in a mess where there's no really one right result, solution, or agreement to a term, and that is something that can really like stick with you like as a person because of how unsatisfying it is, and there are times in an argument where you kind of feel like angry towards the other person, and you might say, oh, I hope karma gets you in a way. So that's why I want to introduce this quote. It's far easier to forgive an enemy after you gotten even with them, by Miller. And I like to show a personal experience. So I've been in an argument before where we both share our sides, and there's still like clashing opinions where who's at fault in the right or wrong, and it's hard to face up to your faults that the other party has pointed out, and it shows a lot of reflection, but at the same time it's also a good thing to know too. And it is easier to forgive a person after like you feel like they got in their taste of their own medicine too, but it also doesn't mean that it's the best kind of forgiveness, because it takes a bigger person to admit their faults and not wanting to hurt the other person in a way too, because at the end of the day, like the past is still in the past, and you still want to, if you still want to talk with the person, you want to end on a good note. And yeah, so another thing that I like to point out in this quote, that it says it's easier to forgive an enemy, but to make an enemy first is kind of like a bad thing. You want to approach situations in life as if like you were in your own shoes. You have to look at two opinions, pros and cons, and you have to make a choice for yourself as a person that betters you, and a choice that could maybe benefit you in the future when you want to associate with your enemy and like maybe want to be friends. And it's hard to admit your faults, but in the end, it's also a learning experience for both you and your other party. So in conclusion, it is easier to forgive. It is easier to forgive your enemy like once you've gotten even with them, but it's even better if you end on a good note and learn from your mistakes. Thank you.
All right, the idea in the introduction is okay. An example would be clearer. That's the same problem with the content. The material always remains a little bit abstract, and the more specific you can be, I think the better off you'd be finding that it's easier to talk about. You do a good job with your voice. I think if I'm just listening to you, you're pretty effective. There's good variety in your voice, and you project adequately to convey an idea, and you pause in the right spots. I think you're doing fine there. The visual presentation is a little bit more problematic. You do look up occasionally, but it's always right in the center of the room. I think the rest of the room mostly gets ignored, but you're not looking up consistently. You have I think I mentioned it the last time also, you have a tendency to kind of look down in front of us, like you're thinking to yourself, and you're still doing that, so you want to make sure that you look up and engage everybody when you're talking and not just, the floor in front of us. The gestures are fine, your body movement is fine. It's kind of interesting because despite the fact that the eye contact is down, I think your facial expressions are pretty animated. You look like, yeah, I'm thinking about this, that's kind of a fun idea, or here's something, or you're thoughtful about something, and so you are conveying ideas with your face, but it's like I said, we're missing the contact that goes with that. All right, thank you.